What's going on, shady people? ShadyPenguinn here. Welcome you back to the channel. Today, I am going to be doing my best to put together a beginner's guide to teamfight tactics. Now, the main reason I'm doing this is because a lot of you guys are being introduced to the game for the first time by me, and a lot of you guys are requesting a guide from me. So I want to put a huge disclaimer out there. I am not an expert pro player challenger in teamfight tactics in TFT, but I'm doing this to hopefully grow the community, help my channel out, because I want you guys to stay interested in the game, obviously. And I want you guys to, it's such a fun game that I know if you start learning the basics and just keep evolving your play style, you're gonna have fun with it, because you probably like strategy games like me if you're watching this video. So that's the disclaimer. This is not gonna be a perfect guide, but this is gonna be the best that I can do for an introduction to TFT. So Teamfight Tactics is an auto chess game by Riot. You're thrown into a match with 7 other players. The game is best thought of in both rounds and phases. A round will consist of you doing one of 3 things. There are carousel rounds, which is the very first thing you do in the game. In the first carousel, the center unlocks for all players at the same time, and you snag a champion that's also holding an item. In every other carousel round after that, players take turns snagging champions in pairs, starting with the lowest health players. If 3 players are tied with the same exact health, 2 players will randomly chosen of the 3 to go into the carousel. Typically in these rounds, you care more about the items than you do the specific champion holding that item, but that can vary with game knowledge and experience. So remember, the first type of round is the carousel round. The second type of round is a creep round. This is where you fight different creeps controlled by AI, where there's a chance for them to drop items, gold, or units. The final type of round you'll be playing in is against other players, and it is the most common and exciting round. This is where you get to deal damage to enemies or take damage from them. Remember, you have a max total health, as do the other 7 players in the game, and once any player's health reaches 0, they're out. After every round of battle, you will gain 2 experience. And those are the 3 types of rounds in TFT. Remember, we have the carousel round, we have the creep round, and we have the player versus player round. Let's talk about champions. Champions should be thought of like your chess pieces. They have their own stats, abilities, classes, and origins. Learning the champions in TFT takes time for sure, but a combination of watching content, research, and just playing the game will get you really far in this area. Every champion has a spell or ultimate that is unique to them. For most champions, they use their ultimate once their mana is full. Champions gain mana via basic attacks on enemies, items, and sometimes class origin effects. One current exception to every champion having an ultimate is Malphite. He has a spell, but it triggers at the start of a game, and he never builds mana after that while fighting. There can be more or less of these given the current set, so just to future-proof this, there's exceptions to the rule. Every round you'll be shown 5 champions that you can buy. This is the champion shop. The most common champions cost 1 gold, and the rare ones cost 5. When you're buying champions, it's important to remember that you are buying from a shared pool of heroes. This means that if an opponent is buying a lot of a specific champion, there are going to be less of that champion in the pool for you to buy, and vice versa. This can lead to you competing with other players trying to build a similar comp, so it might help you decide on what team you're going to build by checking what other players are purchasing. On screen is a breakdown of how many champions of each rarity there are in the pool total. Something to always know for the late game is that there are only 10 copies of each 5-cost champion currently in set 3 Galaxies. Why is this important? When you buy 3 of the same 1-star champion, they will fuse and become a single 2-star unit. These units have higher stats all around and increased effects of their ultimate. So 3 1-star champions become 1 2-star champions. Every champion you buy from the shop is 1 star. So you need to buy 3 of the same exact champion to make a 2-star champion. Likewise, you need 3 2-star champions to make 1 3-star champion, which is the strongest a single unit can become. Which means in order to reach 1 3-star champion, you need to buy a total of 9 1-star champions. Hence why it's important to know that there's only 10 copies of 5-cost champions. If you notice that you and your opponent both have a 2-star champion already of a 5-cost unit, that means that neither of you is going to make that 3-star. Just like chess, there are different spaces on the board for you to place your units, except you get to decide the placement of them, and it's not predetermined like in chess. Learning placement takes time, research, and experience, but a good rule of thumb is to take a look at the stats of your champions. If your champion hits from close range and has high armor and HP, it's probably a tank and belongs towards the front line of the board. If your champion has medium range, it'll belong in the mid line. And of course, if you have long range units like snipers in set 3, they belong in the back line. That's the bare basics when it comes to placements. However, placement can be pretty strategic as rounds go on. If you feel like you're losing too many rounds in the mid and late game and you're done streaking, try swapping up the positioning of your units. Checking your opponent's positions and trying to adjust accordingly is a good habit to build. So don't think that this is just a one size fits all. Melee up front, snipers in the back, I'm good to go. It's definitely adjustments you're gonna have to make as you progress. However, being comfortable with the idea of a frontline, midline, and backline is important. Ideal comps will have some sort of coverage on all of those areas, even if they're not placed specifically on the front, mid, and back at the start of the round. Having units that can attack from a variety of ranges, in my experience, seems very, very helpful. One of the most important aspects of building your team as the rounds go on are the champions, classes, and origins. Collecting more heroes from shared champions and origins yields bigger buffs to your team. You can see these buffs on the cheat sheet in the description, and of course, any potential buffs that you're currently building on your board can be seen on the left-hand side of your screen. It's important to note that these buffs aren't going to include what you have on your bench, only what's currently on your board. When it comes to learning more about classes and origins, where they fall in the meta, which is constantly evolving, I found it most helpful to just focus in on a couple at first, learn how they work, how they function, where they peak, where they falter, and then move on to another set of them. That way you can become more familiar and more familiar as you play the game. So getting champions costs gold. Let's talk about gold. You get gold every round, and this is called your income. If you hover over the icon in the middle of your champion shop, you'll be able to see how much gold you'll get after each round. There are two ways to increase the amount of gold you'll receive. One is called streaking, where you either win or lose a bunch of rounds in a row. This has a cap, as you can see when you hover over the icon. The other is known as econing, or economy. For every 10 gold in your bank, you'll receive an additional gold up to a max of 5. So theoretically, 50 gold is the best place to be to max out your econ. Gold can also be used to buy experience, pushing you to level up, which of course will mean that rarer heroes will show up in your shop more frequently. Note, max level is 9. You can always sell heroes for what you bought them for as long as they are 1 star. Once they fuse into 2 stars, you will lose money on that hero. This applies to all champions except for common champions. When you have a 2-star champion that was built with 3 1-cost champions, that will still sell for 3 gold. So it costs you 3 gold to make that 2-star, and you can sell it for 3 gold. This gives you a lot of liberty in the early game to kind of scoop up a lot of the 1-star champions that you see if that's how you choose to play. Every other instance, including 3-star commons, lose you gold in the long run. All of this creates a need for managing your gold carefully and learning when it will be best to push level or to hold your gold. So we talked about items, how to get them. You can get them in creep rounds and at carousel. But let's talk a little bit more in depth about them. Items can combine to become stronger endgame items. This doesn't mean that you have to wait till the endgame to make them. It just means you're probably not running around with 1 BF sword on 6 of your units. If a champion is holding a single item and you give it another, those 2 items will fuse into a new one with a bonus effect. You can use the cheat sheet to learn which items fuse into which new items, and I've really found that playing while this sheet is up has helped me memorize the item combinations rather quickly, for the most part. Figuring out which items work best on which champions is going to come with time. You can use websites to tell you the best combinations of items and champions, but sometimes they're wrong, and I've found myself improve greatly when I really gave thought to what would work with what. For example, in set 3, the Blaster class lets blasters fire extra basic attacks at random enemies that trigger on-hit effects every 4th basic attack. So, an item that has an on-hit effect would be really good on a blaster. An example of this would be Red Buff. Conceptualizing and understanding why items are good on certain champions will help you experiment and really understand the workings of TFT. Items are arguably the most important part of your team comp. They can carry you for sure. So you're gonna wanna spend a lot of time investing into researching and learning which items are the best for specific team comps. I mentioned phases in the beginning of this video, and I briefly want to introduce them to you because they're more of a concept and not a built-in mechanic of TFT. The 3 phases are the early game, mid game, and late game. Some players define these phases by round numbers, which you can always see at the top of your screen. Others define it on a game-to-game basis using their health or their team building, how far along their team comp is coming along, to define them. It's an important concept to think about and to evaluate as you gain more experience in TFT. Currently for me, not being a pro player or anything, I use the early game to gain gold and a couple key champions, maybe some 2-star, 3-star commons, depending on which team comp I'm chasing, of course. Once I can push to level 5 or 6, I find myself building more of a mid-game team, potentially selling some units that got me through the early game. Late game, I'm trying to have my class origins of choice maxed out and winning. But honestly, I think this is one of my weaker areas of TFT, which is why I wanted to just introduce the concept to you. I'm looking to learn how to manage these phases better. And that's it for my beginner's guide. There's a chance that I missed some stuff, so definitely go in the comments down below, but I think you now have all the information that you need in order to play TFT and understand what's happening at the start of each round, the different types of rounds, and general team building basics. Remember, this guide is specifically for players who know nothing about TFT. I hope I did a good job for you to learn and get excited to download this game. Of course, you can play it on mobile, you can play it on PC. It's a ton of fun, and I want to see you out there. Side note, when it comes to playing competitive, top 4 players gain competitive points. They gain LP. So you don't have to worry about getting first out of 8 people all the time. If you want to progress in the ladder, you just got to get top 4. And don't get discouraged if you find yourself at first not doing well. It took me a long time to start doing well, it feels like. I played a lot of games, did a lot of research, and watched a ton of content. So just keep climbing, trying to get better with each game. Take away from your losses. What did I do wrong? Was I chasing a unit too much? Did I not econ enough? All the stuff we talked about today, if you apply slowly, you'll get better at the game. Now, this channel isn't monetized yet, so I'm not making any money from this video, but this one did take a pretty long time to put together and try to make it somewhat presentable for you guys. So if you can do me a favor and leave a like on this video if you made it this far, and click subscribe because we upload TFT content 3 to 4 times every single week. Exciting matches. We're trying to climb out of gold at the time of me making this video, so hopefully we'll be not in gold in a couple weeks, or maybe in 1 week, who knows. With that, I do want to thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you have any other questions, please go ahead and leave them down below in the comments. I will be answering them for sure. You guys know on this channel specifically, I'm very active in the comments, so be sure to just hit me up with those questions. I would love to answer them as best I can. With that, I'm gonna get the hashtag out of here. Have yourselves a fantastic day, but above all else, keep it shady.